Hello, thank you for attending our webinar today. We will be covering building a holistic cloud security program for any cloud environment with deeper focus on Palo Alto Networks VM-Series for Microsoft Azure workloads. I'm your host, Chris Trulove, in Partner Marketing for Optiv. Before we dive into the presentation, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. If you have a question during the webinar, please refer to the Q&A window located on the left-hand side of your screen. If for some reason you do not see it, you can also pull it up from the ribbon on the bottom of your screen where the icon says Q&A. Your question will be addressed at the end of the presentations. In addition, we have a few interactive questions for you, the audience, to answer. They will appear in the slides at various points. We will pause a minute or so for each question, enabling you to select answers and allowing us to gather your feedback. Now, I'd like to introduce our speakers. We are honored to be joined today by experts from both Optiv and our valued strategic partner, Palo Alto Networks. Nick Mendez is a cloud security specialist at Optiv. He brings over 13 years of cloud services and leadership experience to the company. Over his career, Mendez has established himself as a trusted advisor in the PCI and HIPAA high trust space, as well as among Fortune 500 and Fortune 1000 companies. As a cloud security specialist, Mendez focuses on providing strategic conversation around successful cloud security programs to Optiv's clients. Our second speaker is Tal Zahavi. Tal is the worldwide Azure sales specialist at Palo Alto Networks. His sole focus is to help organizations secure their Microsoft Azure workloads, ensuring the confidence needed to continue leveraging Azure. You can reach out to Tal directly at talzahavi@paloaltonetworks.com or call him at 669-444-6293 to learn more about the latest advancements in the VM-Series for Azure. To get things started today, I'll turn it over to our first speaker, Nick Mendez, to provide Optiv's perspective and approach to cloud security. Nick?
Chris, thank you so much for the introduction. First, let me start off by saying thank you for everyone's time today. We greatly appreciate it. As Chris had mentioned, what I will be discussing this morning will be around building a holistic cloud security program for any cloud environment. And so when we think about that, we're going to think about the cloud as being both public cloud and private on-prem cloud infrastructure. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So when we look at a holistic cloud security program, there's typically a what, why, and how around the cloud initiatives. And so what we're going to discuss today are going to be these four different paths that we have. And the first one being security as a path versus a project, followed by discovering the unknowns, eliminate departmental silos, and then lastly, cloud security program maturation model. And so at the end of the conversation, it's really going to be around agility, security, scale, and control, and how are you able to achieve those goals with your cloud initiatives. So the first one being path versus project. I'll tell you that with the majority of the customers that I speak with were initially brought in to have a conversation with them around a project that they have, and that project is accentuated with a tool that they want to purchase. And so when we have the conversation with the organizations around the project, it's a very tactical type of conversation. And so typically what we do is we have a more strategic conversation, and we ask them, let's take a look at what your positive business outcomes would be, or a positive state would be for this project, and let's build a path of how you're going to get there. And so when we look at it from a comprehensive perspective versus a short-term tactical perspective. So the first thing that we do is we really want to understand where somebody is in their journey. And so as you look at the model of the graphic in the middle of the page, it's a circular model. However, this does not have to follow a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. Many times it depends where the customer is in their journey. We may come in at the design and engineering phase. We may come in at the tools integration phase, or we may help them create an overall governance plan. But the idea for this is to really understand, what does that path look like? What all is it going to entail from resource planning, from a headcount perspective? Right? Do you have the right resources to be able to support, manage, implement, and deploy this solution moving forward? Do you have the ability, and have you designed and engineered the solution for scalability and automation? And really looking at it from a governance standpoint, right, how are you integrating different governance plans around identity and access management, third-party risk, so on and so forth. And so these are really good conversations to have of, what does that overall path look like in order to create the project that's going to have a positive business outcome for the organization. The next one is going to be discover the unknowns. I'll give you a perfect example here. There's over 22,000 enterprise apps, and it's growing daily and out in the world. And the example that I'm going to give is a typical conversation that we have with an organization around understanding what are some of the unknowns. And the first conversation is around trying to figure out what does their SaaS strategy look like. And the typical question that we'll have is, I'm trying to figure out where I need some help in the SaaS marketplace. And the question that we'll initially lead with is, if you were able to let me know roughly about how many SaaS applications you have running that you know about in your infrastructure, what would you say that would be? And the typical response is going to be anywhere between 50 to about 150 applications. And some of the larger enterprises that we work with, they may be into the 400 and 500. But then we ask a follow-up question of saying, plus or minus a handful, how many SaaS applications do you think that are running on your network that are unsanctioned outside of the purview of security? The response is, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Well, when we help organizations try to figure that out, the average result of what we find out is running from a SaaS perspective on their network is an upwards of 900 applications. And out of those 900 applications, about 25 to 30% of those applications are sanctioned. So if you think about that for a second, you have anywhere between upwards of 70% of the applications unsanctioned on their network that people are using on a daily basis. It may have corporate IP. They may be downloading IP onto their personal phones or even their laptops. And this is where organizations go from that moment of, I need some help, to now we need to figure out how do we get our arms wrapped around this. And so the goal that we have for organizations is to really help them discover the unknowns, right? And how do they create an effective plan of lassoing the unknowns and get those into to where it's a sanctioned part of their organization and their network. The next one is going to be around, what's the impetus for change? And it's very simply put, it's collaboration, right? If we really look at IT, InfoSec, and app dev, historically those three organizations have been separate, right? They've had different initiatives, they've done different things, and at the end of the day, very rarely do we see all three of these organizations in the same meeting when we have conversations. And what we're seeing is that, typically, if we rewind about 10 years ago, IT had about 85% of the workloads went through them. As we look at it today, we're actually seeing 85% of those workloads are now down to about 40% of the workloads. And by 2020, we're probably looking at 15 to 20% of those workloads will be going through traditional IT. And so what we're seeing now is a proactive model of app dev, or some people may refer to them as shadow IT, where they're now seen as a proactive engine for the organization and for the company. They're also seen as a revenue generator, and they're assisting in growing their customer base. And so things have changed dramatically, right? The world has changed to where typical app dev was typically in a cubicle type of space where everything had to look exactly the same and everything was deployed the same. But with now how organizations are harnessing the technology within the cloud, right, they're able to deploy workloads in a matter of seconds. And more importantly, instead of having longer implementation cycles from a development, now they're short iterative sprints that they're able to create anywhere between 15 to 25 updates to an application in any given time. And now what we're seeing is this convergence that InfoSec is leading these conversations, right? That they're enabling businesses to not necessarily, InfoSec not necessarily being the speed bump, but they're actually being the accelerator for organizations to be able to harness and leverage the cloud technologies that are out there by creating a platform of security first, and then being able to spin up any workload that they would like to proactively. So as we look at this cloud program maturation model, many organizations that we speak with, they are trying to figure out how do they go from a reactive state to a very proactive state. And spend a few moments on this slide here. Many times when we are brought into conversations with an organization, right, they're trying to figure out how do they get their arms wrapped around a model to where they can have a living, dynamic document that is led with a security focus first. And many times, as I had mentioned in one of the previous slides, is that security is often left out of the conversation until the ninth hour, right? And they do not have an understanding of what methodology was being used to create the application. How is the workload being secured? In some cases, they don't know until they get in there to figure out what cloud provider is being used. And so when organizations are in this state, that's typically called the aware state. And in this aware state, right, they have a general understanding of their security posture. They understand that they need some help and that there's some vulnerabilities. But unfortunately, there's not a strategy in place. But more importantly, there's not a business case to validate it. And having an executive sponsor to be able to have them implement such a journey is pretty difficult. I would tell you that the majority of our customers that we speak with are going to be in this aware state. And in this aware state, we are seeing companies that are trying to figure out how do we move forward with the strategic plan of attack. Roughly about 10%, I would say, of customers that I've spoken with are in the strategic state to where the company has fully bought in. They've backed it with resources from a strategy perspective of saying, the security program is going to be our key initiative, and it's going to be built around business decisions and how we're going to support the business moving forward. But more importantly, it's used to drive a future strategy and reduce enterprise risk. And so when we have organizations have this, right, they are the tip of the spear, and it's very, very rare that we see organizations in that manner. How Optiv helps is that we will help organizations move from an aware status through the maturation model to where they could be in the strategic model. If you can get your organization from an aware state to even an adaptive or purposeful state, I will tell you that you will be head and shoulders above the rest. In these two states is really where now you have a plan of attack, but the most important thing is it's scalable and it's repeatable across all different organizations within the company. And that from that perspective, everyone is following the same business security plan. They have business use cases that are there to support it, but it's going to be, security will be extremely prevalent across the entire business. And so you go from InfoSec being maybe the office of the know or the safeguard and slowing projects down to where this is how they are now the key accelerator to these business initiatives. So I'll pause here. We are coming up on our first question, and the question is, how would you rate your maturity level of your organization's cloud security program? I'll give everyone about 30 seconds to answer this question, and then we'll move over to the next slide. Right, we'll go ahead and move over to the next slide. Looks like we have some answers there, but I will tell you that 50% of the organizations that I speak with are in the aware status, and 10% are going to be in the strategic status. So you're looking at 60% of the organizations that are out there are either at the very beginning or they're only 10% are at the end. There's a ton of room that is available for organizations to advance their security posture in the cloud. And if that's something that you would like to have additional conversations with, we're more than happy to have those with you. So what does this mean for you? At the end of the day, if you look at your overall cloud initiatives, from the 4 pillars that we discussed in the first slide, which is security as a path versus a project, being able to discover the unknowns and eliminate your departmental silos, and looking at your cloud security program and how do you mature it across time, right? The outcome is really going to be the agility, security, scale, and control across that. A good place to start, if you haven't already, would be the cloud control matrix model, right? And being able to look at, how do you start? Where does a starting gate look like? And that will help you down the line of creating a holistic cloud security program. So as we look at creating a holistic cloud security program, we talked a lot about kind of what all you should look at, but I'd like to spend a few moments and discuss what are the outcomes, right? What are you looking for? What's created out of each of these events? And so when you look at what's required of the business, you want to make decisions based upon business needs, not so much around a tool or a project that needs to be done. Many times, I always give the analogy of if we go down the line of solving for an individual project or a tool, many times what's going to happen is you've built a house, and the house may be architected extremely well. However, the foundation of that house will falter over time. And so now you have to create a lot of moving parts to be able to retrofit your cloud security program moving forward to be able to handle security initiatives moving forward. So as you look at that, base your requirements on business needs, not so much short-term tactical goals. Another one is assess the current environment that you have and what are some of the challenges that you have moving forward. So being able to understand where is your gaps as you move forward, and if you were to move forward with the infrastructure or the solution that you have, would you be able to accomplish your desired future state of what you would want it to look like? Many times the answer is no, and being able to have organizations understand that, sit in that moment of understanding where they're really good and where do they need some help, and helping them cross that chasm is all the difference in the world. The next one would be around creating a strategical roadmap and a tactical roadmap. It's really, really important to understand, what is the overall strategy? And when we say strategy, it's what does it look like over the next 12 to 18 months? And being able to make sure along the way you're able to have tactical wins as you're implementing your overall solution. And then making sure that there's some actionable items to the roadmap. Many times we see organizations that have an outstanding roadmap, but what happens is that they spend so much time of overanalyzing everything, the business has changed by the time they want to implement something. And so then they have to go back and retool. Perfect example is an organization I've spoken with. They've spent a year and a half on creating a roadmap, but the strategy had changed when they were getting ready to go to the next step, which was having implementation discussions. So being able to create an actionable roadmap and have life cycle timelines of when you need to have these done by is also a great way to look at a cloud security program. And then the last one is whatever you're doing, be able to measure the results, being able to monitor it proactively, and being able to optimize should something happen. If there's a breach or if somebody goes out of line of creating a workload in a public cloud, being able to see that proactively, being able to quarantine that off and understanding how did that happen and making sure that you protect the overall organization. So when you look at making sense of it all, a couple of tidbits here of how do you have an effective plan is first start off with understanding the shared responsibility model. There's a huge misconception out there that if you choose a public cloud provider, that cloud provider is going to take control over all of the security aspects. And if you look at the shared responsibility model, The cloud provider is going to be responsible for security of the cloud, of, let's call it the networking layer, the infrastructure layer, the database, the storage. But securing of what's inside of the cloud is actually going to be on the customer side of the house. And so really understanding where does that line of responsibility land and making sure that you have people aligned to those portions is going to be extremely important. The next thing is having security take the reins of all sanctioned and unsanctioned apps, right? Being able to lasso those in and being able to create a plan of attack of how are you going to take unsanctioned apps and either move those into a sanctioned environment, or being able to look at the individual user levels to be able to mitigate what they have access to and what they don't have access to, but more importantly, how they're able to share this information. And then the last one would be being able to assess your current maturity level, being able to really sit down and understand where are you in this journey, right? Are you in a reactive state, or are you more in a purposeful, proactive state, is going to be extremely important for you to sit down and come to that decision. The last one would be to effectively use technology. So one of the items that we see organizations struggle with is that they're used to using their security tools that they have on-prem and trying to use those in the public cloud. And there was a study done of 1,900 professionals, and this study was done in 2017, early 2017. And that study had mentioned that out of those 1,900 professionals that they interviewed, security professionals they interviewed, 78% of them actually said that the current tools that they have limited ability to work in the cloud, or they simply do not work in the cloud. So being able to understand, using the right technology for the right milestone is going to be extremely important as you move through the overall model. So if we look at Optiv from the ability to help organizations, very simply put, we have the ability to help organizations plan, build, and run their environment. So typically in the plan stage, what we do is we have conversations and we really want to understand, what's the agility that the application has, and being able to leverage the core security strengths of an organization, and then being able to understand how can we help them have the ability to work cross-functional when we look at that gap analysis. So being able to understand where are their strengths, where are their weaknesses, and being able to make sure that we put a plan in place to get them to pull them across that chasm to where they have the ability to support that plan moving forward. The next one is build. We work with organizations. We have a blueprint that we go off of, but it's not a hard, fast blueprint, right? We don't force organizations to fit into our mold. We understand that every business is different, but the blueprint that we use is based upon best practices and what are some of the optimal configurations and workloads need to look like. What do those architectures look like? And at that point, being able to help organizations build that out to where they have a solid security plan in the cloud moving forward, that really helps them out dramatically. And then the last one is run. I would say this is one of our key differentiators that we have as an organization, is that we have the ability not only to help them plan and build something, but we have the ability to help them execute on behalf of their organization. And that's done by our embedded cloud security architect program that we have, and our cloud assessment subscription model that we have. And so really what we do at that point is we have the ability to implement, run, and manage on your behalf as an organization, and over time sunset our team and really level up your organization to have them take over the initiative. And so it's easier to have organizations come in and help you along that journey than trying to figure it out on your own. And that's one of the items that I really love about what we do here at Optiv is, we just don't create a booklet of what's going on within your organization. We actually help you plan around it. We actually help you build and deploy these resources, and then we can actually help you run them. So our approach, as I had mentioned in one of our previous slides, is we really want to focus on the agility and the speed and development within an organization. But what we want to do is make sure that we align around a security strategy that has business initiatives and drivers, and we understand what the risk tolerances are to ultimately create a very rock-solid program for you. And that program that we help create for organizations, right, we understand businesses change. Customers are asking more and more from organizations. And so that development plan that we help you with is dynamic, right? It can change over time. And many organizations will have us come in, twice a year or once yearly to come in and really evaluate if anything has changed within their model, and if so, how do they conform to some of the changes that are being there. And we do that by the approach of having the ability to come in and create program governance models, implement different tools that you may have, and designing and engineering as well. So at the end of the day, why Optiv for cloud security? I will tell you one of the most impressive items about Optiv is that we have over 1,000 security experts that are on staff with Optiv. And one of the items that I really like is we have what we call our Office of the CISO offering. And these are ex-CISOs from other organizations that now are part of Optiv. And we have the ability to have peer-to-peer conversations and understanding what they're trying to work on. And so when we really look at it from, how Optiv helps, it's really focused around a solution offering from the overall strategy and how do we help implement and manage that. Along with a repeatable approach that's tailored to each individual client and not so much of how we want to run things and how we see the world. We understand every client is different, and so the approach that we have is repeatable, but it's also tailored to what a customer needs and wants out of their program. And we also have dedicated centers of excellence. And so I mentioned that, with the cloud team, we work with identity and access management, third-party risk, incident response, SOC, the whole nine. And so we're able to call back to each one of those centers of excellence to be able to help create an overall cloud solution program. So next, I would like to introduce Tal. Tal, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you, Nick. And I wanted to thank everyone again for taking the time to learn a little bit more about how Optiv and Palo Alto Networks are working together to secure both hybrid cloud and public cloud environments. For those of you who aren't aware of Palo Alto Networks and what we do, we are a pure-play cybersecurity company and a leader in the next-generation firewall space. And we don't only offer a firewall solution, but we're also helping organizations secure their SaaS applications, their endpoints, and also their public cloud environments as well. So, what we're seeing a lot of today is hybrid cloud environments with a lot of enterprises, right? There's a lot of talk about Azure and AWS and other public cloud vendors that are out there. But at the end of the day, we see hybrid cloud as the strategy for most organizations moving forward. So what are some of the reasons that organizations are looking into this hybrid cloud strategy? Well, the cost of owning your actual data centers and keeping up with cooling costs and the actual cost of the different hardware can be very expensive for organizations. Utilization of those resources as well. So one of the advantages, as many of you know that are looking into public cloud environments today, is that you're able to fully leverage the different resources that you have, so you don't have resources sitting out there not being fully utilized, which is essentially just a waste of your investment there. In addition to that, you have unlimited scale. So today, if you have your own data center, you're not able to scale up and down appropriately to meet the needs of your different application workloads and ultimately your business. And also as a business driver, right? So helping your business achieve agility, achieve innovation is all something that hybrid cloud environments are allowing you to do. So, in addition to that, to protect these different environments, you want to protect them consistently. And that's why Palo Alto Networks comes in, right? Because what we're seeing is that the attack lifecycle is very similar to what we see on premise. A user gets infected, malicious attacker gains foothold, is able to move laterally and ultimately execute their goal. That goal can either be to build a botnet system, harvest Bitcoin, or exfiltrate data. And that harvesting Bitcoin is a little unique to these different public cloud environments. So what we've seen, some of our customers have actually come back to us and said, hey, I got back from the weekend and my AWS bill was much higher than what I expected it to be. Right? It can be in the sums of $50,000. We've even seen customers come reaching out to us and having this type of unfortunate situation. And it's because a malicious attacker took control of their Azure instance and was able to harvest Bitcoin and scale that up appropriately. And that becomes an issue in these different environments where you do have unlimited scale and unlimited agility, but now you have some other things that you need to be worried about. A few other things that we're seeing is different marketplaces that malicious attackers and hackers are using to sell these different Azure resources or AWS resources on. The example here is the Xdidic marketplace, and this is one of the most damaging marketplaces on the dark web today. About 6 months ago, we actually worked with a business risk intelligence firm, Flashpoint, who had discovered that a data set was in this marketplace with data belonging to over 85,000 organizations. You can see this challenge and issue spanning a whole different slew of organizations and customers. It's not just a small set of customers that are having to deal with this type of worrying situation. Now, when you look at this type of marketplace, you also want to understand, well, what kind of value are these hackers and malicious attackers getting by taking over an AWS or Azure resource? So in this example here, this one resource is worth over $15,000. Now, you might ask yourself, why would this be tall? Why is this worth so much money, and why does this need to be such a worry for me? Over here, you can see that there are admin privileges for whoever ends up purchasing this resource. In addition to that, you can see down here that this is a point-of-sale system, so a lot of information here that's important for an attacker to have, potentially credit cards, social security information, whatever it might be. So you have to also think about, well, as Nick mentioned about the shared security model as well, why do I have to worry about security in the public cloud? I was under the impression that Azure, AWS were on the hook for making sure that I'm secure. And in part, you're correct. When it comes to the physical security, so the actual security of the data center itself, that's where these different public cloud vendors are on the hook for. So as you can see down here, it says Azure looks after security of the cloud itself, so the compute, storage, database, and networking. When it comes to the actual content, data, and application itself, that's where the customer or you are on the hook in making sure that this data is secure. So that's why you want to achieve consistent enterprise security no matter where your application or data resides, whether it's on-premise, private cloud, or in the public cloud today. And this is Palo Alto Networks is allowing you to do, providing consistent security for all applications across the whole organization. And so when you're looking for this consistent security, you need to make sure that you're protecting all applications, you're covering encrypted traffic, and of course, protecting yourself in the public cloud. And you need to protect yourself not only from known threats, but unknown threats as well. So that's where the VM-Series for Azure comes in, allowing you to have application and user visibility no matter where your application or data or content resides. So when we were found on the principle that you can't protect what you can't see. And that's why that application visibility is so necessary. And we have a few different deployment models that we're seeing as a general for all these different cloud deployments. One of these deployment models being where we are the IPsec termination point when it comes to a hybrid cloud situation where you have your on-premise and you have your public cloud instances as well. Another situation we're seeing is east-west traffic, protecting inter-VNet inter-VNet information between a database or a web server. Another model that we're seeing is leveraging our Global Protect solution that allows you to leverage the scale and global footprint of a public cloud provider like Azure to protect your resources no matter where they are. So you can use our Global Protect solution to protect a mobile device or a laptop in a VPN situation where you have different end users in your organization in different locations across the world. And so you're leveraging the scale of the public cloud to protect yourself no matter where these different end users are. Now, Azure and AWS and some of the other public cloud vendors like Google and others out there do provide some sort of basic security in the public cloud. But they are providing network security groups in Azure, security groups in AWS, and the challenge with these native security features is that they're limited in nature. They're port and protocol based, and the issue with a port and protocol based firewall, as many of you know looking into next generation firewalls today, is that they're only blocking and allowing traffic through a specific port. And with different applications doing port hopping today, you're actually letting in hundreds of applications that you might not want traversing your network, even by leveraging these AWS Azure native features. So with Palo Alto Networks, you're getting true complete security. You're getting complete visibility with our application and user identification technologies. You're able to reduce the attack surface by only allowing specific users and specific groups of users to leverage different applications, and you're also blocking what you know you don't want in your network or in your public cloud environments. And then you're able to protect the known. Right? You need to stop the known threats that are out there today. And even more importantly, you need to be able to protect the unknown threats. The threats that are causing organizations to come into the news today and causing problems for some enterprises that can lead to millions or even billions of dollars being knocked off their value. This is over here in animation that you can see a screenshot of our graphical user interface. And it's similar to what you'll see in our on-premise solutions as well, because you can actually manage all the solutions from that same single pane of glass that you're used to from Palo Alto Networks. So today you can see different applications, different users here, and this is the type of visibility that Palo Alto Networks provides at a high level, in addition to the in-depth reporting that we can provide you as well. Here's another screenshot that you can see where we geolocate all the different users and applications that are crossing your network. You're actually able to leverage Palo Alto Networks to block specific countries from accessing your different environment, whether it's on-prem or in the public cloud today. And we've actually seen that hackers can be quite lazy when it comes to some of their attacks. Sometimes they're not even masking themselves. So being able to block a specific country that maybe has a lot of malicious attackers in it, like China or Russia, you might be able to better protect yourself and create a more higher level of security posture for your environment. One of the things you can do is protect and segment whitelist applications, right? So you can make sure that you're only letting in what you want to let in your environment, and also protecting yourself on an east-west traffic basis, and also from VNet peering. So when you have different groups of VNets and you want them to be connected, Palo Alto Networks can help ensure that you have consistent security throughout your whole public cloud environment. Another thing, again, we like to protect and prevent known and unknown threats. So you need to be able to protect what's known, but also what's unknown out there, again, because this is what's causing a large amount of issues for some of the enterprises out there today when it comes to the value of their organizations and overall their goal to help their investors. And we are able to do so, protect not only you, but all the rest of the organizations that are part of the Palo Alto Networks family or network that are leveraging our solutions with our threat intelligence and wildfire subscriptions on top of our VM-Series. So because we're providing the same consistent security, whether you're on-prem or off-prem, you still get our threat intelligence cloud wildfire. And what wildfire allows you to do is that when we see a threat, and we throw into our threat intelligence cloud and we find that it's an unknown threat, we're going to share that signature with every single other Palo Alto Networks user. And so you're not just getting security from your own environment, not just sharing that information with all the other different firewalls, whether they're in the public cloud or on-prem. You're also getting the advantage of having and being protected from everything else that's out there that's being seen by all of our different clients globally. And we have over 40,000 different customers today. So you can see that this network is very big and allows you to be protected no matter where your information resides. So again, you're allowing that protection to be delivered by our threat intelligence cloud, Wildfire. That information is sent not only to our different firewalls, but also our endpoint protection solutions and our SaaS security solutions as well. And to make sure that all your different firewalls have consistent policies, we leverage our centralized management solution, Panorama. So what Panorama allows you to do, again, it gives you that single pane of glass where you're able to see all your different firewalls and manage them from a single place, and also correlate all your different traffic logs for visibility, forensics, and reporting as well. One of the things that differs in the public cloud and why Panorama is so important is because you're going to be scaling out a large set of firewalls. So today in your on-premise environment, you might be used to buying one large firewall for your data center to protect yourself. Well, in the public cloud, it makes more sense to scale out on the number of firewalls based on the amount of traffic or how much you need to protect your different applications. So you do so by throwing a set of VM-Series or a few into an availability set, leveraging a load balancer to send traffic to these different firewalls and ultimately to protect your web database or using your application. So Palo Alto Networks is able to provide resiliency and availability regardless of whether you're on-prem or in the public cloud. Again, I wanted to go over our different use cases one more time. You have your hybrid use case where we're being used as an IPsec termination point, segmentation for east-west traffic to make sure that a malicious attacker isn't able to move laterally, protecting yourself as an internet gateway from internet-facing applications. And then again, that remote access with Global Protect, making sure that you're fully leveraging the abilities of the public cloud. You know, Azure, AWS, they have a global footprint. So today you don't have to worry about having a weak VPN because you have an employee out in Africa or Australia or wherever it might be that might be traveling to. You're always going to be protected by leveraging our solutions in the public cloud today. The thing I like to point out is that our VM-Series is very flexible. So if today you're in AWS and you want to be moving yourself into Azure, you can spin down that VM instance and spin it back up in that Azure environment. So no matter where your business ultimately goes, if you're leveraging a multi-cloud solution or that you decide to move to a different public cloud vendor in the future, our VM-Series provides that flexibility for our different customers. Now when it comes to your different licenses, you have some more options in the public cloud as well. Now on-premise, you only have, buying actual physical hardware device. But some of the advantages of the public cloud is giving your organization agility and flexibility and allowing you to consume and spend on an hourly basis, right? So we do have a solution in the marketplace today on a pay-as-you-go basis where you can spin up a solution whenever our VM-Series whenever you need to and spin it down whenever you need to as well. So you can do some testing in there. You can also just use that for different elastic workloads. We also allow you to purchase the licenses directly from us. And then finally, we have a VM-Series ELA, which is very unique to Palo Alto Networks. This VM-Series ELA allows you to consume an unlimited amount of our VM-Series for a single cost. Huge advantage to organizations that are trying to figure out, hey, how much am I going to spend in the public cloud this year? How much am I going to spend in Azure? Well, Palo Alto Networks is letting you know this is how much you're going to spend, X amount for public cloud security this year because you have unlimited consumption. So if you decide to spin up 100 different firewalls, you can do that, even if our original contract had you for, let's say, 75. We don't take any sort of clawback at the end of the year. We're not going to charge you more for that. In addition to that, because we offer a single authorization code, you're able to bake us into a tool like an Ansible to ensure that all your different workloads in the public cloud are protected by Palo Alto Networks. This is important because a lot of times we see DevOps teams throwing different workloads into the public cloud environment and security operations trying to slow them down, right? Make sure that they have the security needed to keep that consistent security posture throughout the organization. So by baking in our VM-Series into all your different public cloud workloads, you're able to ensure that you have that consistent security posture. But not only that, you're also able to drive revenue because these different DevOps teams that are pushing more workloads into the cloud and more applications are driving revenue for the organization. And so by ensuring that they can act very in an agile manner allows them to drive revenue for the organization. And so Palo Alto Networks is actually helping organizations to ensure that you are not only protected, but also driving revenue and not slowing yourself down. Lastly, wanted to go over a summary of everything we've gone over today, that just consistent security is needed no matter where you are, in the public cloud or in an on-premise environment. I wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to learn a little bit more about how Palo Alto Networks and Optiv are working together. I wanted to thank the Optiv team for inviting me on this webinar today, and now we'll move into some Q&A.
Thank you, Tal. Yes, that's correct. We will go to a Q&A session. Reminder that you can submit your questions in the Q&A box on the left of your screen. And it does look like we do have a couple of questions. Nick Mendez, I will start with you. Can you give me an example of how an enterprise is successfully maturing their cloud security?
Yeah, good question. So the first one is that they start with being able to have executive buy-in, of understanding that teams need to start working together instead of in individual silos. So in order for them to start maturing and getting better traction, that's where we're seeing organizations have that win, is when organizations come together for the betterment of the organization and understand that the world has changed and how technology is being used has to have a security model first. Being able to create that security plan, action plan out of the gate, and them harnessing the technologies of the cloud that they would like really helps them as they move forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Nick. Tal, there is a question for you. Where can I get a link to the templates you mentioned?
Yeah, so some of the templates that Palo Alto Networks offers are all on GitHub, but feel free to reach out to your specific account manager, and they'll be able to help you and share with you all the latest and greatest templates that we are constantly updating in our GitHub repository.
Thank you very much. Nick, another question here for you. What is the first step I should take to go about, that one's answered. What is the first step I should go and to take to secure any cloud environment?
Yep, the first one would be the first step for securing a cloud environment is understanding where you are, right? What's the current state? And that goes back to understanding on that slide that we talked about the SaaS applications. I think that's a really good place to start in your journey because there's so many ways for people to deploy different SaaS applications, and being able to understand what you have visibility into and what you do not have visibility into. So I would say the first great step to securing your journey to the cloud is understanding what is running sanctioned and unsanctioned in your network from a SaaS perspective, and being able to mitigate those and lasso those in to create a great plan of attack moving forward.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks for interpreting my use of the English language there and asking that question. Good job, good job. Tal, back to you. Is there a way for me to trial the firewall beyond what is available on the Azure Marketplace?
Absolutely, Chris. So today you can go on the Azure Marketplace and get a 15-day trial of our VM300. But you can reach out to me directly or your Palo Alto Networks account manager. We'll be able to get you eval license of any of our different virtual appliances from the VM50 to the VM700 for you to trial, and we can extend that beyond 15 days if that's what you need for your proof of concept.
Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you all for joining our webinar today. Thank you to our speakers. They've done an excellent job. That does conclude today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed the presentations. A follow-up email will be sent to you shortly, which includes links to review today's webinar recording on demand at any time you like. Please feel free to share it with your coworkers. And thanks again. Have a great day.